5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
OffTheRopes.com. What's your legacy?
Hi, and thanks for joining me for the Off the Ropes podcast. I'm Victoria, and I'll be presenting a weekly show bringing you some of the world's most inspiring individuals, but not just those who have achieved enormous success, specifically those who have endured hardship and adversity and overcame their challenges. Plus, I'll be speaking with experts in the field of nutrition, health, fitness, and personal development to extract their wisdom on how to optimize your performance, fulfill your potential, and learn how to get your life off the ropes. In 2011, Steve Bate was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, a degenerative eye disease which will ultimately render him blind. 18 months after the life-changing news, and with just 10% field of vision, akin to looking through a pinhole, Steve became the first registered blind man to solo climb one of the world's tallest rock walls, El Capitan, in Yosemite National Park, California. Not content with just the one enormous victory, within a few months of returning from Yosemite, Steve thought his next seemingly insurmountable goal should be the 2016 Olympics. And in a few weeks' time, he'll hear whether he's been selected for GB's tandem cycling team. Adventurer, climber, athlete, champion cyclist, Steve Bate is off the ropes. Let's meet him. Steve, before we hear about your GB paracycling endeavours, I'd really love to learn how, in 2013, as a partially sighted man, you climbed El Capitan in Yosemite National Park, California. What motivated you to ascend what I understand is the world's largest vertical rock formation?
I think that when I was diagnosed with my eye condition, I'd been a climber for a long time, and I'd always climbed, and that was a real passion of mine. And when I got diagnosed and lost my driver's license because of my eyesight, I guess the wheels fell off everything, really. It was a really difficult time for me, and it's a case of, like, a lot of people don't realise how you neglect the ability to get in your car and drive somewhere. Mm-hmm. And when you have to rely on other people or public transport to get somewhere, it's very difficult. And certainly in the outdoor context, you can't, bus stops don't really stop at rock crags and amazing places like that, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a massively hard time for me, and I ended up getting a lot of support from friends and a kind of local charity dealing with sensory issues. And the idea came about when I first met the people from the sensory services that I work with. I was really inspired by these people that were kind of taking their time out to kind of help me deal with what I was having to deal with. And to be honest, I felt a bit of a fraud because, there's a lot of people in the world that need a lot more assistance than what I thought I needed. But they took the time out and helped me. And I figured that I needed to do something while I still could to help them. So the idea of going to solo climb a rock face was, I figured something that would be worthwhile people giving their money to support a charity. So,
what exactly is the eye condition?
I've got retinitis pigmentosa, or RP for short, and basically that means that I don't have any peripheral vision. So the easiest way to describe it is I've got tunnel vision effectively. So if your vision, or a normal person's vision, is symbolized by a visual field symbolized by a basketball, I can see a golf ball. So that's the kind of field of vision that I have. So anything I look at, I can still see very clearly, but it's only a very, very small part of what I can see. So
I see. And when were you diagnosed with that?
In the 11th of June in 2011.
Okay.
Funny how that date sticks in your mind.
Yeah, of course. So what actually made you, what I understand is El Capitan's would be challenging for anyone. Why specifically that mountain? It's not really a mountain, is it?
Well, it's just a big rock face, really.
It's a big rock, yes.
It's a big bit of rock.
A very, very big bit of rock. How tall is it?
It's 1,000 meters high.
1,000
so
meters.
It's for those of you who have been to Paris and been up the Eiffel Tower and looked over the edge of that and thought that was pretty high. It's 3 times that height, just to give it some kind of context.
Absolutely. 3 times the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah, so
word.
it's pretty big.
Okay. So how long did it actually take you?
I think soloing it took me 6 days. I think so. It was a long time, kind of dangling around on ropes and being in a vertical world, not a horizontal world. So it was a bit surreal.
And how challenging did you find it personally, considering you're partially sighted?
To be honest, the most challenging part was actually starting it. It sounds funny to say that, but it's a 45-minute walk up to the base of the climb where it starts, and it's a very steep walk up, lots of scree and nasty rocks and loose rocks and things like that. And I think for me that walk was probably the worst 45 minutes of my life. I told everyone that I was going to go and solo climb this thing, and it's all very good when you're looking at pictures and on paper, but when you actually see it in real life, it's pretty overwhelming and pretty scary, to be honest.
How long did you have to prepare?
About a year. So I had a good chunk of time. A good chunk of time.
Was there also a year though that you were you quite nervous over that year in the build up?
No, not at all. No, I'm a very kind of systematic person. So I'd spoken to Andy Kirkpatrick, who's become a really close friend, and kind of he's a bit of a master of the of what they call the black art of rope soloing, which is when you climb on your own, but instead of climbing without any ropes. So obviously, if you fall off, you're not going to come back. To climbing with the rope, so you've got some sort of protection. Mm-hmm. But it's a very slow and cumbersome way of climbing. But I knew that was the only way that I was ever going to try something like that, because I like living, and a rope adds to the safety, obviously. Yeah, so I spent that year kind of mastering that art, really, and making it so it was second nature. So everything I did in training was all geared around the thought of, spending 9 hours climbing, being absolutely exhausted, and still having to make really smart decisions. And hopefully, with the training that I was doing, those decisions would become second nature when they really needed to be. Because when you solo climb like this, if you make a mistake, it could be your last one. So you really have to be mentally switched on the whole time that you're on the rock face, because if you untie from the rope or do something stupid, it could have catastrophic consequences, really.
And do you remember any particularly terrifying moments?
I had 2 falls while I was climbing.
Okay.
And the first one happened probably halfway up the rock face, where I was hanging on a bit of a sling, like a nylon loop that was left. They call it in situ, left on the rock face by someone else.
Okay. And
that snapped. They tend to deteriorate with UV rays from the sun, and I didn't fall very far the first time, and it happened in a blink of an eye, really, really quickly. So, and actually, my first thoughts of that were quite strange. Was just like, yes, I've fallen off El Cap. And I was quite proud of that. I was about probably 500 meters off the ground at the time.
Yeah, sounds really cool, doesn't it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then the second time wasn't quite as I wasn't quite as happy about. I'd put what we call a sky hook, which is just a little metal hook which you rest on a ledge. So it doesn't really fix into a crack or anything. It just literally rests on a ledge, and then you put a loop on that and stand in it to gain height. Mm. And I had put one of these on a traverse and stood in it, and it popped off. But I fell about, I think probably about 4 or 5 meters, which doesn't sound particularly far.
Oh, I don't know. How high up at the time?
Probably about 700 meters, I guess. So I was a long way from hitting the ground. It was fine.
Yes, and that still sounds very, very, very high and very far.
Yeah. But what happened in the fall was I actually got flipped upside down. So when I kind of came to a stop, I was looking face first down, kind of 700 meter rock face, looking at the ground, thinking, "Oh, what just happened there?" And again, these falls happen so fast, you don't really have time to clock what's going on. But I'd hit my elbow as well in the fall, and I think by the time I sorted myself out and spun myself around and got myself up the right way and untangled myself from all the ropes that I'd kind of got tangled in the fall, my elbow started to hurt. And I guess that was a moment where I was I guess I felt really vulnerable because there's not really any chances to be rescued up there.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I'd landed slightly different or broken my arm, you're kind of in the middle of a rock desert. You've got to get yourself off there because you're on your own. So yeah, that was a bit just. It didn't really shake me up, but it was a really good reminder of I just have to be really careful. I'm still in the middle of this climb and it's not over yet. So
did you ever have any thoughts about quitting? Although I imagine quitting at 700 meters up is not that simple. But did you think, why am I doing this? I want to go home.
I think on that walk up, on that 45 minutes, it got to the point where I honestly thought about falling over and breaking my own ankle. So it's a good enough excuse not to do it. It was ridiculous,
That's brilliant. I've broken something. I've got to go home. It's not my fault.
So that was, when I got to the base of the climb, I was shaking with kind of terror that badly that I actually had to sit down because I thought I was going to fall over. So that was probably the only point that I thought, you know what, I can't do this. This is suicide. This is stupid. But then I started to organise all my equipment, which there's kind of 100 kilos because you have to carry all your food and water and everything, sleeping gear and everything with you, which you've got to haul up the rock face as well. And when I started to sort that out, I put some music on, and it just I could have been back where I trained, where I was training back in Scotland, and when I made that first move onto the wall, I just knew that I was going to go to the top. It was just really surreal. It's like I was so scared to start, but instantly, being a foot off the ground, and I thought, hey, I'm soloing El Cap here. It's like that probably would have been the easiest point to get off, but there was no chance. Yeah, as soon as I left the ground, it was like I'm going to the top, and nothing's going to stop me. So it was a very, very surreal mix of emotions and sort of mental strength. I don't know where that came from, and where it's been the rest of my life, really.
Never been tested. So when you actually reach the top, what happens when you reach the top of El Cap? What's up there? I don't mean, is there a cafe or a restaurant waiting for you? I mean, is it completely flat?
It's pretty much. It's a big plateau. So El Cap itself, the valley of Yosemite is basically been carved out by a glacier. So there's big rock walls on either side, but other than that, the tops are relatively flat. So yeah, when I got to the top, Andy, my friend, was there to meet me. He'd come up to take some pictures and help me carry all the stuff down. And another friend as well, an Australian lad we'd met. So they were there. And I remember Andy saying to me when I got to the top, I'd been climbing for 12 hours that day because I had to get off because we actually had to catch a flight back to the UK the following morning. So I had to get off that day. Okay. Or else we would have missed that flight. And I remember Andy always saying to me that the best thing about solo climbing is when you get to the top, and you kind of realize what you've done and all those kind of emotions wash over. You can have a good cry and, you're on your own, so it doesn't matter. And of course, when I arrived at the top, Andy was there and my mate Jono was there. So it was a bit surreal. I hadn't seen anyone for kind of 6 days really. And just the smells, like there's some trees and things like that up there. And, for 6 days I spent in effectively a rock desert and you don't smell anything. Wow. Besides how bad you smell, to be honest. Yeah, of course. But yeah, getting to the top was like all of a sudden you've got these fragrance of trees and grass and things, and it was just amazing. And I kind of sat down and Andy said, "You're not going to cry, are you?" And I was like, No, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. And I kind of sat down and my eyes just started leaking. Oh. I couldn't help it. And it was just surreal. I couldn't believe that I'd achieved it really. It was just, It was sad as well because it was over. That's the other thing. For a year I'd built up to this massive thing, and I'd gone through such a mission at the start to actually start the climb, and such a kind of emotional roller coaster at the start, and then you get to the top and all of a sudden that's it. It's over. And although that day lasted for probably about 17 hours by the time we got to the bottom. Wow. That was it. It was gone, and that was the end of it. I think as well, I never really got time to sit down and reflect on El Cap or spend more time in El Cap because literally we had to fly out the following day. So to be honest, it was like I never had closure of it. It was almost like it never happened. It's really bizarre.
Can you go back?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going back.
You need to go back and spend a little bit longer sat on the top, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
By yourself,
Yeah.
having some thinking time. So how long did you actually spend up on the top then?
We must have been up there for, I don't know, probably about an hour maybe, if that.
Oh, so 6 days climbing and 1 hour at your destination.
Yeah,
Oh, no.
yeah. Well, they always say it's not about the destination;
Indeed.
it's about the journey. But
still.
yeah, ideally, I think I would have loved to have set up my portaledge, which is the kind of little stretcher that you hang from the rock face that you sleep on, just below the summit, and just had another night just to kind of hang out and take it all in, and then climb over the top the following day. But
it sounds absolutely blissful. It really does. When you actually sleep on the ledge, as you're, like I said, six days of going up. So was that 6 nights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you actually sleep? I can't actually imagine sleeping comfortably on a rock face. Is it a good night's rest?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, because you're exhausted, I imagine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, it's the portaledge is effectively it's just like a cam stretcher what you slept on when you were a kid. So you're getting to
No, it's really not, Steve. It's 700 meters in the air. It's nothing like that. It sounds terrifying.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It's everyone has their levels of when you do something for the first time, it's generally scary and challenging and whatever. But the more you do it, obviously, the more blasé you get about it. Like driving. The first time you drove a car, you're all nervous and all tense and stuff like that. And now when you get in the car, it's second nature, isn't it? So it's kind of like that. So yeah, I think when you get to the wherever you're going to sleep and you set it up. You've been climbing for 9 hours or whatever. It's been it was 35 degrees. I'm ginger, so I don't deal with the weather that well. That kind of heat that well. Okay. So everyone says that's really my disability, not being blind. But so yeah, you set your portaledge up, and it's almost like relief, because for that brief kind of however long you're there for. You're going back to a horizontal world, not a vertical world. So, just sitting on something and not having the weight hanging on your hips and your harness. And it's like you say, it's so blissful. It's why people climb big walls. I think they don't climb them to get to the top of big walls. It's just to spend time at a portaledge because it's amazing.
And what can you hear when you're several hundred feet up late at night? What are the sounds like?
You get lots of birds. I had kind of bats flapping around, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, wow.
You can, looking down into the valley, and you see cars driving through the valley, which look like matchbox cars.
Mm-hmm.
The stars are, I can't really see a lot of stars because of my visual field, but it seemed like I could see hundreds while I was there. I was very lucky because it was clear every night. It was perfectly clear, and I think the third night was a full moon. So it was just amazing.
Yes, it really does sound
stunning.
Incredible. What thoughts were going through your mind? Because we don't often in life get the chance to be still. You had no choice but to be still. Do you remember the sort of thoughts you were having when you were resting, looking up at the stars?
I can't really remember too much. I guess I was probably thinking about how the day I'd just kind of gone climbing, how that went, and anything that I could do to be more efficient and be a bit quicker. Probably thought a lot about what I had to do the following day. I'd looked at the kind of the route guide, so the bit of paper that shows you where to go and what's coming next and how difficult the challenges are and things like that. Like I'd studied that so hard for a year. I'd read people's trip reports of them, other people soloing El Cap and this route in particular. So it's funny. It's like I kind of knew it so well, but I was discovering it as I was climbing, if that makes sense. And so I think a lot of the thought process all the time was just keeping safe, really, and making good decisions.
And how do you think that experience has changed you?
It puts things in context. I mean, that 45 minutes of walking up to the base, absolutely terrified and, really not knowing what to do with myself and just being so almost insane about trying to stop myself from doing this. I think to then go ahead and do it, that kind of mental strength, it just puts everything in perspective in life. And, now if someone said to me, I want you to go and, jump off a cliff or, whatever, fly to the moon or anything, I'd just be like, okay, yeah, we can do that.
I can do that. And do you have any plans to do a similar challenge?
I've always got plans. I've got hundreds of plans. I'd definitely like to continue climbing. Basically, with the cycling that I'm doing now, since I came back from LCAP, I actually haven't climbed since I came back from LCAP because of the focus on the cycling. But I'm really looking forward to hopefully after we get to Rio this year, to actually just not riding my bike for a bit and getting vertical again. And
okay, so following El Capitan, in fact, just a few months after, wasn't it, you pursued another dream. Can you tell us about your trials with the GB Paralympic cycling squad?
It was a bit of a strange thing. I have a friend, Karen Dark, who actually is on the GB cycling squad as a hand cyclist. She's paralysed, and if you don't know who Karen is, she's definitely one that you should look up, because she's absolutely amazing.
So what was that name again, Steve?
Karen Dark.
Karen Dark, thank you.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to contact her because she'll blow your mind. Okay. So Karen's in a wheelchair, and when I got told that I potentially could go blind in 5 years when I was diagnosed, like I said earlier, my kind of the wheels fell off, and I was just like, it was funny. I couldn't really understand. I didn't really know who to talk to because I didn't really think anyone could understand. And my wife was absolutely amazing, but I couldn't. It was just weird. I couldn't speak to her because I didn't think she could understand, which was really daft. But anyway, I thought I'll go and speak to Karen because she's gone through this. She had a climbing accident, badly paralysed, and she's done some amazing things since. And the first thing when I saw Karen and said to her, I'm losing my sight, I could be blind in 5 years, the first words that came out of her mouth was, oh, great, you can ride on the back of a tandem for GB and come training with me in Mallorca. And
what a fantastic response. Brilliant.
Exactly, yeah. And it was, it was almost like, no, Karen, you don't understand, my life's over.
I want sympathy.
And that was kind of, it was just kind of like, it was a real kick up the arse for me, to be honest, because it was like, hey, pull yourself together. You've got loads of people supporting you to help you, and all you can't do, you can't drive. The big scheme of things, you can't drive, but there's lots you can still do. And I think that really changed my perception. So funnily enough, because I'm from New Zealand, I actually contacted the New Zealand Paralympic governing body first and said, hey, listen, I think I'm classed as a VI, visually impaired athlete, and I can ride on the back of a bike. So they were like, oh yeah, great. So they sent me out some forms. I got some checks by a specialist and sent them all back, and then didn't hear anything from them, which I thought was a bit weird. And kind of chased them 2 or 3 times. And I thought, you know what? Sod you, I'm going to phone the British,
hurrah,
the British cycling crew and see what they've got to say. And I actually ended up going in and doing what they call an ID talent day 2 weeks before I went out to LCAP. So it worked out quite well because I was pretty fit before I went to LCAP. So I was going all right. And so I went along to this talent day, and there were 2 people from British Cycling, and you basically had to get on a gym bike effectively and do what they call a power test. Mm-hmm. And so I did that, and one of them was thinking, oh yeah, this lad could be good, and the other one was thinking, no, I don't think he's got what it takes. So they said, well, can you come to Wales in 3 weeks' time? And I said, well, I can't, sorry, because I've got to go and do this rock climb. But I can give you a call when I come back if you're still interested. And they were just like, oh yeah, whatever. Yeah, well, here's the number. Just give us a call when you come back. And so that's what I did. And I think 2 weeks after coming back from LCAP, I gave this woman Harriet a call, who was the manager of the Talent ID program at that point, and said, "Oh, you're still interested?" And she was like, "Well, yeah, we've got a camp in Wales. If you could make that in a couple of weeks, I guess that would be quite good." It was just a bit kind of, to be honest, I thought I'd blown it by going to LCAP and not jumping at the chance straight away.
Okay, sure.
And anyway, so it was really hard because I just had a month off work. So I had to go back to work and say, I need another week off, lads. Is that all right?
And what were you doing work-wise?
I was working for a charity working with disadvantaged young people, like in the outdoors, so teaching them climbing and biking and paddling and all those sorts of fun things.
What was that charity, Steve?
Outfit Murray.
Outfit Murray?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. I'm going to actually make a note of that and put it in the show notes, which will be available on our website. So if anyone's interested, they can certainly go and have a look at that there. So why bikes?
Well, I guess it was one of those things, you know. I mean, climbing El Cap is amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's but that's all on that was all on my terms. So you know, like anyone, you Victoria could rock up and think, right, I'm going to climb El Cap, go and train for a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever it takes, and go and climb it. You know, whereas an Olympics is a very different ball game, isn't it? It's you know, that's not on your terms. You know, you train as hard as you can, and you have to, you know, you're racing against people, and you know, you really have to progress and impress people then to, you know, to be selected. And I just thought after El Cap, it was almost like that thought process of like, I'm going to go to the moon. You know, it's like,
it created an allowing, didn't it? Having accomplished something so huge, your world is then wide open.
Yeah, it was literally like, right, what can I do that's going to be even bigger? What's more stupid than going and doing what I'm doing? And to me at the time, you know, for me, becoming a professional athlete, I was about 36 then, 35, you know, becoming a professional athlete at that age and trying to compete in Olympic Games was just ridiculous. You know, it was just so far out there. And, you know, like I'd ridden a bike. I'd always mountain biked as a kid, and you know, I taught mountain biking things, but road biking was something I'd done very little of, and it terrified me. And certainly, I'd never ridden on the back of a tandem before, or raced on the back of a tandem. So it was just one of those things. I guess I'm the kind of person that likes new experiences, and you know, I never want to look back. I complete something, I want to look forward and you know, try and achieve something different, or you know, add to your skill set. And so it just seemed like the perfect opportunity to have a go, really. And
so did you go to Wales in the end?
I did go to Wales. Yeah, I had a week in Wales in unbelievably good weather, which really annoyed me because I've been to Wales several times trying to climb in the Clonberis Pass, and it always rained heavily.
Oh yes, it always. I think that's the appeal. I absolutely adore North Wales in particular because I love it's so atmospheric. Yeah, you're right. I don't think I've seen it sunny once. Yeah. So
the one time I went through Clonberis when it was absolute wall-to-wall sunshine, about 30 degrees, was I was on the back of a tandem and got to look up and point out to everyone all the famous rock faces out of there, to which they didn't really care, to be honest.
No. Shut up, we're trying to concentrate.
Yeah. So yeah, but that week I was very lucky. That week went very well, and it just kind of escalated from there, really. And I think, or if you spoke to any of my friends, they'd say that I'm very single-minded, and once I put my mind to something, everything else goes by the by, and that's the sole focus. And I guess that's I knew to have any chance of going to Rio at all, I knew I had to just change everything and totally immerse myself in cycling, and that's what I've had to do. So unfortunately, climbing's kind of gone by the by, but
it's been parked for now. So what do the actual trials entail?
The trials that for
to actually join the GB Paralympic squad, how do you get selected?
Yeah, I don't know really.
You must have shown some talent, Steve.
Yeah, so you had to do this power test, which on the initial talent day, which basically is you do 3 tests. One of them is pedaling it as hard as you can for 6 seconds, which is, as they call, a max power test.
Okay.
So from a standing start, they count you down, and you just go as basically as hard as you can for 6 seconds.
Right.
Then you have a 3-minute gap, and then you do that again. You repeat that process. And then you have a 3-minute gap, and then you do a 3-minute power test, which again is basically going as hard as you can for 3 minutes, which doesn't sound very difficult, but actually you can knack yourself pretty pretty quickly. So it's the balance of kind of pacing yourself and still producing as much power as you can. And I think that went okay. And I guess from there it was just I jumped on the back of a tandem with a guy named Cy Ernest, who was a elite mountain biker and had done a bit of piloting for GB before. So I rode with him in Wales, and we got on great. He was a really, really cracking lad. And then after that, I got paired. We came back and rode on the velodrome in Manchester, and I got paired with a guy named Jason Queerley, who was quite famous, really. He won a gold medal in Sydney in 2000 on the track, and he was the first of the he was kind of what started the British cycling success on the track, really. That was back in the day when Chris Hoy was, just a youngster, and Craig Clean and guys like that. So Jace kind of started that. So I rode with him for a bit, which was amazing. And I guess I went and spent a week at his house. I was still living in Scotland at this point, and I went and he invited me to come and stay with him for a week. And I was really nervous because, so this guy's an Olympic medalist and been a professional cyclist for years, but he was absolutely amazing. And after the first day, we went up to Lancaster and cycled around the Trough of Bowlen, which is a lovely hilly area. And it was lashing with rain and really bad conditions. And we rode for 3 hours, and we stopped. And he said to me that he said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm all right." I was absolutely knackered, but I didn't tell him that. And he said, "Oh, we've got an option. We can either do another hour or we can head back from here." And I said, "Well, we should probably head back because I know I've got another week of this." And I was absolutely knackered. So I made a good choice there. But he turned around and said to me, "You know what? You've got what it takes to go to Olympics. No matter what anyone says, if you work hard, you can do it."
And did you already believe that anyway?
No, I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea that, from what he said to me there, it was like, it kind of gave me belief, actually. It was just like, all right, okay, maybe I do have what it takes. And then it was just a progressional thing. I rode with Jace for a few months, and he had always said to me he was coming to the end of his career, and he'd always said to me, "Listen, I'm not the guy to take you to Rio, but, I'm happy to work with you and help you until, we can fill this seat effectively." And then, what year was that? 2014, it must have been. I got paired with who I ride with now, a young lad named Adam Duggleby, who is a elite road racer and a very talented guy. So I got paired with him, and we just started working together and riding together more and more. And GB sent us out. At this point, so I'd been invited onto the development program. So there's 3 programs in British cycling, effectively, for parasport, which is the development, which is where they see if you've got what it takes. And then you move up to the academy program, which is really for kind of, I think it's something like 16 to 23-year-olds, right? Because the usual progression of a professional cyclist is obviously you get discovered when you're a youth and you go through these stages.
Of course, in any sport, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then the final stage of that is the podium program, which is the likes of where Chris Hoy and Vicky Pendleton and Brad Wiggins and all these guys are. Wow. And I got taken on to development, and we got sent out to, I say we got sent like we were naughty boys, out to Holland to race in a 2-day tandem stage race. And it was a bit weird because that was the first time I'd ever raced for GB. And I actually fell off the back. I fell off the back of the tandem sprinting for the finish line. Which
I'm trying not to laugh.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's really funny. Which wasn't the best start to my cycling career with GB. See, my legs cramped so badly. I got flicked off the back of the bike. So, and literally, we were only 100 meters from the finish line, so I was devastated.
Yeah. Were you injured?
No, I just lost a bit of skin, really. I hit the ground at about 35 mile an hour and just bounced a bit, so I was all right. But anyway, I got back on the following day, and we had two more races to do that day, and we actually ended up winning overall, which was amazing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Falling off was just like, oh wow. And I think that proved to the coaches that were there that actually there was, I may have not had the the natural talent, but it showed I was willing to work hard and do everything I could to impress them, and that's kind of kind of how it happened, really. And I don't think I've been naturally talented in any sport at all. I've just got this stupid ethic of being really stubborn and wanting to work really hard to impress people. So yeah.
But that stubbornness is actually, there must be talent. There must be a lot of talent there. You may be too modest, perhaps. But you were accepted onto the podium squad, weren't you?
I was, yeah. It was amazing, actually. That was 18 months ago now, I suppose. I got a call from my coach at the time saying, we've reviewed your funding from UK Sport, and we're moving you up to program. So I went straight from development to podium, which was a bit of a shock, to be honest.
And that makes you a full-time cyclist now, does it? So presumably you obviously had to give up work.
That's right, yeah. So, and to be honest, that was a dream come true in itself. To call yourself a professional athlete was just like, whoa, that's quite a cool thing.
So do you vividly remember the call and how you felt when you found out?
Yeah, I remember Tom phoning me and telling me, and I knew that he was trying to push to get us to go full time. And I think because we were, both Evan and I were adults and worked and had mortgages and things like that, I think that was his basis to go right through academy, which is a lower funding wage, a lower pay bracket, and going straight to podium. So yeah, I remember the call, and I was pretty certain with the results we'd had that we were definitely going to go on to academy, which meant that I could probably go full time, but I may have to do some part time work here and there. And when he said you've gone on to podium, I was just like, whoa. It was. I think it was a relief in a way, because it kind of meant they had belief in your ability. So I think that was, for me, that was the main thing. Like, even podium funding it's not great money at all. The job I left, I was getting paid a lot more than what I do now being an athlete, but it's one of those lifestyle choices, isn't it? I mean, I absolutely love what I do now, and it's brilliant. But
and being selected for the podium squad, did that cement your belief that you actually were worthy of being there, or did you still have doubts?
It's funny, going to an Olympics and trying to be selected for Olympics it's a very complicated process, which a lot of people don't realise. And Adam and I are the best tandem pairing in the country. We've won the national time trial and road race for the last 3 years since we've been riding together, and it's
superb. Wow.
Yeah, it is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, and I'm going to sound like probably really arrogant here or anything, but the competition that we face in this country isn't that strong. There aren't many people actually riding on tandems at a racing level.
Okay.
So in a way, it's very easy to win those titles for us. The people we raced against at the Nationals this year, there were only two other tandems in the race. Three other tandems. Two of those were teenage girls pairings who are hopefully going to be in Tokyo, because I think they've got a big future ahead. Okay. And one other male tandem who only really ride on the track, not on the road. And the girls, it's a circuit race, so it's around like a motorbike track effectively. And the girls have a lap head start on the men. And I think we lapped the girls 7 times and the men 4 times. So, and that was, I mean, it's not very nice, to be honest. It's not, you don't feel great doing it, to be honest.
You don't wave as you go past. You go, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it's more like that. Yeah, you apologise like, I'm really sorry about this. But, and that wasn't even going, that's riding at a kind of a relaxed pace for us. So,
I see.
So it's a really...
But nevertheless, you're still British champion. Well, no, regardless, you can still wear that badge with pride.
Like a false jersey, to be honest.
It feels like a
false jersey, like you don't, almost like you haven't earned it, because it's almost it's like when it's been given to you, but you haven't. I think having a bronze medal for a World Cup race where you've worked to absolute exhaustion exhaustion means far more than winning a national title.
I can
Absolutely.
understand. Yeah, okay. So what is next for you? Are you Rio bound?
That's the big question.
Oh.
I'll find out on the 17th of June.
Oh, Steve, are you living on your nerves?
No, not really.
You're not? You're quite blasé.
No, I'm pretty relaxed about it, really. I've kind of taken the theory, the last 3 years has been an amazing journey, and I've done absolutely everything that I could have done. I've done everything that's been asked of me by the coaches and the support staff we have at British Cycling, and if I get selected, then it'll be amazing. It'll be another part to the journey, and if I don't, that's okay. I can live with that. It's because I look back and think I wouldn't have changed anything. My wife and I moved from Scotland to just outside Manchester to be closer to the velodrome and the support system here. And my wife's been incredibly understanding and massively helpful. Like, there's no way I could have gotten to this position without Caroline being as supportive as what she has. And yeah, sometimes, it's like I've tried my hardest, and if I don't get selected, I'm not good enough. And that's okay. I've tried as hard as I could, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, and also in a relatively short amount of time as well. Really,
yeah.
I mean, you haven't actually been training for this Olympics all your life, have you? So it is a phenomenal achievement in such a short amount of time. So if Rio comes and goes, I presume, will that be it for your tandem racing?
That's another big question. Don't know. Basically, I've spoken to Caroline, my wife, about this, and we're not really going to make a decision till after Rio. If I go to Rio, then we'll kind of sit down and have a chat afterwards, because it could be one of those things. It could be the most amazing experience of my life. Although, to be fair, LCAP would be pretty hard to top. But we could go there, do well, but it could be absolutely a horrible 2 weeks of my life of just stress and grief and not be very good. So it's kind of hard to make it. I don't really want to plan anything in terms of my career moving forward until I've had that experience, really.
Yeah, just wait and see. So I know you've got that decision coming up very soon, which incidentally, isn't that cutting it a bit fine? Finding out in June. It's not that long. It's not that long, is it? The start of the Olympics.
To be honest,
not much notice.
British Cycling. I think if British Cycling had their way, they would select the week before. To be honest, because we've only got 6 male spots, I think, and 6 female spots available. There must be 15 guys that are going for those spots. That are eligible for those positions. So, the
Sure.
longer they can draw it out, the harder everyone keeps working. If they selected the squad, a year out, then
Yes,
people can get complacent. So, So it's kind of one of those things, really. But
And if you don't get selected, will you actually visit as a guest, as a spectator?
Rio,
Yes.
absolutely not.
You wouldn't go to support your friend. You wouldn't go to support your teammates.
No, I'd be
Would
hanging
just
off
be
a rock
too
face
much.
somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one thing. Living the lifestyle of an athlete. It's not just like riding the bike and the training is the easy part. It's all the stuff that you can't do off the bike when you need to recover with your feet up and all of these things. So for me, if I'm not selected, it'll be spending some time with my wife, who deserves my attention a lot more than my teammates, to be honest.
Screw you. We're going on holiday. So I can understand that. Well, I wish you. I'll cross my fingers for you, as I'm sure everybody will, and I hope you get selected. If you don't, I think it sounds like you're perfectly okay with that anyway, which is a wonderful position to be in, I think, mentally.
Yeah, I think so. I've already got a bit of an adventure planned after, kind of post Rio, and I wanted to have something that just in the kind of diary to look forward to if I didn't go. So it wasn't,
It's a good idea.
Don't get me wrong. If I don't get selected, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be great to watch it on TV and watch your friends who you've been there working, as hard within the gym and on the bike and all that sort of thing, and watch them, on the big screen. That would be, it would be difficult. But yeah, having I'm actually going to South America in November with my wife and two other members from the team, Karen Dark and Jacko Van Gas, to do a cycle tour.
Wow.
So for 3 weeks, which should be absolutely amazing, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely fantastic. So, you've got a backup there, which I think is a really useful tool to have, isn't it? Obviously, you are aiming for Rio. Should Rio not happen, then you'll then be focused on something else. It's a really good way of dealing with things, I think, isn't it? Not you haven't put all your eggs in the one basket there, and you'll sound like you're going on to continue having a really adventurous lifestyle. Steve, where can we learn more about you?
Probably I've got a website, which is www.kiwistevebate.com, and I'm also on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter as well, which is probably the thing I update the most. I do have a blog on my website, which I randomly put stuff on.
Like most bloggers.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously Facebook is the other one. That's I think I'm Stephen Stanley Bate on Facebook, which is again probably more of the racing kind of stuff that is updated on that, really.
Wonderful. And we'll also put all of those, all of your social media handles and whatnot in the show notes available on the Off the Ropes website. Well, thank you sincerely for joining me today, Steve. It's been absolutely captivating and thought-provoking and really inspiring too, hearing about your adventures climbing El Capitan and also with the paracycling. Good luck with Rio selection. Sincerely hope you make it. And thanks again for joining me, Steve.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
And sincere thanks for listening. For all references and resources mentioned in today's episode, please visit the podcast page on offtheropes.com. Before you go, a small plea. We want to help as many people as possible discover their potential and overcome any adversity blocking their path. If you feel today's episode could inspire someone else, please share it via the social media icons on the Off the Ropes website. And if you're able to leave a review on iTunes, it'll help us enormously coax others off the ropes. And finally, if you'd like to receive weekly inspiring conversations drop into your inbox every Sunday, please subscribe to the Off the Ropes podcast via the website or via iTunes. Thanks again, wishing you an inspiring day.